Unfortunately, our next story takes us to Washington, D.C., where the homicide rate is actually going up. As a matter of fact, that is the story out of Washington, D.C. Daily Caller noting the increase in the homicide rate in the District of Columbia, even as nationwide the homicide rate is declining. And by the way, we're at nationwide near 50-year lows in this country. Not that gun control advocates will ever tell you that, but that is the case. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., it's a different story. Homicides going up, 42% increase in 2018 over 2017. And a lot of experts say that is going to continue into 2019 as well. Now, the Daily Caller quotes one of the assistant chiefs of the Metropolitan Police Department, Robert Conti, who says, "We have a lot of people being arrested for gun crimes, but they're not doing any real time." He says that's a problem. Yes, it is. He says, when you've seen a guy being arrested 5-6 times, violent offenders repeatedly come through the system. And he says that the biggest frustration that we find here at the agency is when you see a person who's committed multiple violent offenses and they're not being any real penalty with that crime. Now, to be sure, Robert Conti also says, oh, it's the gun laws in Virginia that are causing the higher homicides in Washington, D.C. Weird how that happens in Washington, D.C., but not in Virginia. But I think he's really onto something when he talks about the repeat violent offenders on the streets of Washington, D.C., who are getting a slap on the wrist and then being sent back out on their merry way. It's why we have a deal of the day on this program each and every day, highlighting the persistent offenders in our criminal justice system that rarely, if ever, get real justice. And unfortunately, again, the attitude in Washington, D.C. is, let's pass another gun control law that's going to, be an impact on the relatively few number of legal gun owners in the city. Meanwhile, the violent criminals, we'll just leave them alone. Let's see what happens to the crime rate then.